Welcome to TechZine TV.
Hi, and welcome to this new episode of TechZine Talks. I'm at the Oracle AI World, and I'm here with Richard Smith, EVP Cloud Infrastructure for EMEA. And obviously, we're going to talk about the cloud, which
Indeed.
is because actually the event used to be called Cloud World.
Indeed.
Now it's AI World. Do you feel a bit slighted that it's no longer Cloud World? Are you fine with the name change?
No, I'm fine with the name change. I think I think it was an appropriate time. I think this is not all clouds are created equal.
No,
they are absolutely not. As you know, and we've talked about before, Oracle has been working on its Gen 2 cloud architecture for many, many years. Clay talked about some of the things that we've done just in the last year in terms of footprints and availability. The exciting thing about the Oracle cloud, no matter where you put it, what size you use, it's exactly the same cloud.
No.
Every service. So the 200 odd services that are out there, doesn't matter the platform.
I think during his keynote, I think Larry called it, so Larry Ellison, obviously the founder and CTO of Oracle, I think he called it the Oracle cloud is different or unusual. And I'm not sure what word he used, but I saw it somewhere.
I would tell you that and it sounds like a marketing pitch, but
well,
it sounds like a marketing pitch. The reality is, again, sometimes not being first means that you have the ability to, frankly, do things somewhat differently, and that's exactly what Clay did. Right? He started with a skunkworks team in Seattle. He was given a blank piece of paper, and Larry said, "Go build." Knowing everything you know now, go build the world's best cloud, right? So that, frankly, is what he's been doing.
So how are things going in general in your region? What's the latest? What's the state of the art in this aspect?
So I would say, so I'm as I think I'm in my 10th year now in the role. Rate and pace of growth is phenomenal. You would have heard, Safra talk about it, and in earnings, we are doing incredibly well relative to commitments by customers to utilize our cloud.
I mean, not to get too much into the numbers, but I think last quarter it was 7-point-something billion on OCI alone.
Yeah, roughly that. I'd need to double check it.
Paraphrasing, but
but the other thing which was really, really important was she talked about it also a number called RPO, so remaining performance obligations, which was well in excess of several hundred $1 billion.
Yeah, but also looking at the revenue side of things, I remember about 5-6 years ago, you didn't even split it out yet.
No.
So that only started about four-ish years ago, and then it was 1, 2. So you're showing a very healthy growth numbers, right?
Again, the growth rates are phenomenal, and I think the thing that really is a testament to the importance and the value that people see in our cloud and our cloud offering is exactly in that RPO position, right? Because you wouldn't sign up if you didn't believe in the inherent value and the capability that it had.
No. Okay. And as you're looking at what was announced this week during AI World, I think from my perspective, I've seen about 11 press releases or whatever.
Yeah.
Many of them.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think the AI data platform, I think really stands out. Because Oracle has not necessarily the obligation, but you have a lot of data under management, right? So, that's all private data that you can actually use very well for AI purposes.
Absolutely.
So to be able to unlock that, and I think that's what the AI data platform is about, right? Partly, at least.
So, listen, I think that's a great question. Of course, I'm going to say it's a great question because I think I've got a great answer.
Yeah.
But seriously, again, we're 50 years old. We are the stewards of much of the world's data. You heard from Larry yesterday. You don't necessarily need to take data from one place to put it somewhere else to get inherent value from it. In fact, you shouldn't necessarily have to do that.
That's a big change, right? In the industry as a whole, because some years ago, a lot of companies still wanted you to actually move all the data to them.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know that it's necessarily changed that dramatically. I mean, a lot of organizations, I'm not being derogatory to the competition. I would never be so, but a lot of them will tell you, come and scrape the application layer or scrape the data layer move it over here so you can do some level of analytics or some level of manipulation from it. Our position on it is you don't need to do it, right? And that's what the AI data layer is all about.
Yeah, because up until this point, sort of, if we just really sort of make short of it, up until this point, you needed to let the big LLMs loose on your data, and you didn't want to do that as a customer, right? So on your own data, in your own database, all your private sensitive stuff.
Correct.
So this AI data platform is a layer in between.
Correct.
That actually makes it possible to have your SLMs, models, whatever you want to call them, access that data for your specific purposes.
For your specific purposes. So, and and here's the interesting thing. Larry said this yesterday as well. I'm sorry to keep quoting him, but
he's quite influential.
He kind of knows what's going on.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting things here is, right, whether you're talking about ChatGPT or Grok or any one of the LLMs, right? The inherent training against those models is largely done.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that the comment actually from the OpenAI gentleman this morning, he said, we should stop talking about training and inferencing, because in reality, it's a virtuous circle. Now, where the real value for customers comes from, to your point, is where they can integrate their private data into that environment, and whether it's, through RAG or other technologies, that's when the return on investment starts to show.
And it's also actually necessary to have this kind of layer in between.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're going to end up with another big data kind of concept with lots of interesting projects, but nothing in the products.
A super data lake or a super data ocean.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it.
No,
you don't have to do it. You do it in,
and you don't want to do it either, because it doesn't work. We've demonstrated that doesn't really work, right?
No.
So I think that's a good way to approach it. But coming back to that sort of question about how much AI do you already see in the marketplace? Because how much adoption is driven by AI already? I think can you give us some idea of how that works?
Well, again, if you Clay's keynote this morning and Larry's, right, you saw one of the graphics where we're building out data centers in Abilene, and we have Stargate initiatives across much of the world. So right now we and much of the world are in an incredible building phase as we build the capacity, with and for this environment. We have very deep partnerships with OpenAI, with the LLM providers. And at the end of the day, sort of goes back to your earlier question, the inherent value comes not just because I can do a ChatGPT query. The inherent value comes because I can actually add value to my business. I can do something that either shortens the workflow that I might have used, that gives me a level of intelligence that I didn't have before, allows me to optimize the way I think I do things. In answer to your question, everywhere I go in my travels, and I'm quite well traveled.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go in my travels, I'm seeing examples of where people are doing this.
Yeah.
I would say, and I would say a couple of years ago it was kind of different, because people were saying AI is really exciting.
Yeah.
What's the question?
We talked about it a lot.
We did.
Yeah. But it wasn't the adoption wasn't there yet. But now you see the adoption, or at least the desire for adoption, has grown.
The desire is an imperative.
Yeah.
If you don't participate, if you decide not, well, of course you can decide not to, but if you don't participate, then the world, not just the technology industry, will go past you.
Yeah. And how do you make sure that you don't lose sight of all the other perfectly valid uses for the cloud? Because there's a lot of focus on AI, and I get it. It makes perfect sense. But at the end of the day, I mean, projections usually are that about 30% of all the data center capacity is going to be used for AI, and 70% for lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
With AI on top of it, probably, but not necessarily for those big models.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you don't overstretch on one part and forget the other part?
No, it's a very good question. Look, I mean, so we have built very large compute cloud capabilities, right? And as I said, the other thing that we also do is we build them for the size of the organization you need it. So if you're a bank and you need to be behind the firewall, as you know, we service that.
Yeah.
If you need to be in the public cloud, as you know, we can service and provide that. The reality is the cloud is not going to go away.
No.
Right?
No.
It's going to be an inherently critical delivery mechanism within for AI.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, in the same spirit, every customer I visit is asking today, what's the best strategy for me to do this?
Yeah, and there's obviously also lots of different levels of AI, right? So if you look at databases that has AI embedded into it, but it's not necessarily specifically only for AI workloads. It's for
absolutely.
So there are different levels of how much AI is there in the cloud, right? So yeah.
So you raise a really good point here, because actually a really, really good point. So in 23 AI, which is, and actually we're rebranding it, right?
Yeah,
so
26
AI will be the AI database.
Yeah, it has twice the AI acronym in it now.
It will be
just to make sure that
just to make sure people know it. But
yeah.
But then also, so vectorization as a standard capability within the database, so without it, you don't have AI. But the other thing from an Oracle differentiation standpoint is, if you look at it all the way back to a relational database or even pre-relational, whether you want to do JSON, whether you want structured, unstructured, etc., all of that is contained within the Oracle database environment, all of it.
I would be very interested to see how big those databases get compared to how they used to be, because vectorization usually causes a lot of bloat of your data. So the databases themselves could become a lot bigger.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's good that it's in the database itself already. So
I was going to say within, but you are right.
Yeah.
I mean, you do need to think about that, right? Because you just don't want petabytes of immutable data storage at the end of the day.
It's very expensive.
It's very, very expensive. Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting addition to the database. Have it to the vectorization in it already. I think that's
Yeah.
And then another point I wanted to raise was, we're all familiar with the term scale up and scale out, and for various reasons. But recently I come across the term scale across quite a bit. So the scaling of models and AI workloads between sort of data centers.
Yeah.
What's the what do you see happening in that? I mean, obviously the Abilene thing is probably a very good example of one big thing that consists of various smaller ones.
I was going to say that's a perfect example of it. And as they bring the respective data centers online, right, the configurations of those data centers can be one single virtual unit, or they can be multiple units. Again, Clay talked about it in his keynote this morning in terms of a lot of the work that they've been doing in terms of virtualization, where you can actually scale out across those models. And it also has cost benefits as well.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on where and what you want to do with the workload and where it's going to logically sit.
But it also has a big impact on how you build the infrastructure itself, especially because in Abilene, of the data center, the components, the modules of the data centers are quite close together, right?
Yes.
But obviously there are also data centers that are not necessarily close together.
Correct.
That also need to be able to, you also need to be able to scale across those. So it also has a very big impact on the pipes in between. It's quite fundamental.
It does, and again, the nature of the workload is going to play a big part.
Yeah.
You're going to, by definition, you're going to have longer latency if you put something on one side of the the Atlantic versus the other. But you might do it.
Yeah.
Right. It may actually be a logical thing if it takes you, to be candid, if it takes you 2 or 3 seconds to get a response on something. But having the data in those two respective locations is the right thing to do because it keeps the data currency correct.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing to do. It's pretty clever technology.
And then obviously, me being from Europe and you being responsible for EMEA, sovereignty is obviously a big issue, a big thing. I mean, my government in the Netherlands actually unanimously in Parliament they voted to build their own cloud, which I think is a completely stupid thing to do, but those are my words, and I don't expect you to comment on that. But it is it's a very emotional subject for some reason, right? Because from where I'm sitting, I look at it as from a technical standpoint. I don't think that where a company has its headquarters HQ is very relevant to the sovereignty discussion. But for some reason, emotionally, it is for many people. How do you see that in our area?
You know, we've certainly you and I have talked about this before. I will say, and I've said it many times, I for the most part, I think regulation is our friend, and the reason I say that is because I don't think you want unfettered guardrails in the way that you operate, in the way that some of these models run, or with unfettered control. You know, is there a higher degree of regulation in Europe than the US? Absolutely so, and it means a lot of cost and expense as far as a vendor, you know, our size. And
if you only look at DORA, that's an enormous.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, we've just been, and appropriately so, identified as a critical vendor in DORA.
Yeah.
That's a lot of expense now because, you know, basically, as you know, they can come and audit your processes. They can.
And there are hardly any blueprints. I mean, it's virtually impossible to have one process that works for everybody when it comes to DORA, right?
So the regulation is not new. Excuse me. The regulation is new. The processes are actually not yet explicitly defined. In fact, I would tell you, I was in a meeting. I was in a meeting with the DORA body where we said, look, we have no objection to the regulatory position, but let us help you identify what some of those processes need to be.
Yeah.
All right. And so we'll be working with them from that standpoint.
Yeah. But when you talk about regulation, that regulation itself can be very emotional at the start as well, because I seem to remember the Sovereignty Act, or what I think it's called the Sovereignty Act. I'm not sure about the term exactly, but so the first version actually said that if the company came from outside of the EU, no dice.
Correct.
They later thought, oh, that's a bit crazy.
Yep.
And then took it out again. So it's also an evolution of regulation that needs to sort of go to a certain place where everybody thinks, oh, this actually works.
And
I think.
And look, I'm not being disrespectful to the regulators at all.
No.
But it is worth bearing in mind, a lot of them don't necessarily come from the technology domain, right?
Well,
so what they're looking to do, and I understand this, I respect it, is what they're looking to do is secure the privacy of individual and government data. Now, having said that, you know, saying I've got to have 50 different circuit breakers and, you know, only this type of passport or, you know, this kind of configuration and et cetera, it becomes difficult to manage.
Well, and also if you're the example I alluded to earlier for the Dutch Parliament, it's saying, look, we're going to build it ourselves. The amount of headache that you sort of put on yourself by doing that, when it's not necessarily very necessary.
Yeah,
it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
But this is a personal comment. This is not a. I agree.
Yeah.
Right, the technology, whether it was us or somebody else, the technology is there to do that today. So I'm not. My personal opinion. I struggle a little bit to understand what the value that will be achieved from that is.
Because the chances of you getting the same capabilities, the same level of performance compared to sort of an incumbent a solution on the market are very, very small.
Well, I mean, Frank, you understand. I mean, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to develop and deploy this technology. It costs billions of dollars to build out that data capability across the globe. That's the kind of magnitude you have to deal with.
So looking at it from that standpoint, I think at least from me, government should enable much more than enforce in this respect, right? So, but yeah, that's not.
And I love the Netherlands, by the way. So I mean,
well, me too. So that's good. I mean, we don't have to go down that route because then it gets very political, and I don't like politics. So let's stay away from that one. Yeah. But I mean, and then I want to touch on one final point.
Sure.
And that's about there's more and more buzz around an AI bubble potentially bursting.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Altman a couple of weeks ago said it during an event that I think the words he used were, there are some bubbly elements in AI. He didn't want to specify what elements that those were, but I mean, and I think Oracle is part of one of the examples that a lot of people are using, right? So the OpenAI, NVIDIA, Oracle sort of funneling around lots of money. What's your view on this? And maybe what do you say about people that call this an example of?
Two parts to my response, maybe 2.5.
Okay,
maybe 2.5. First and foremost, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
It is here to stay. Will it iterate and change? And will we see ChatGPT 5.5 and 5.6, etc.? It's here to stay. Are there elements where people are looking at this and depending on what you define the bubble as?
Yeah.
Right. Some people would say the bubble is you can't make enough money yet out of this AI environment, and therefore it's a financial problem.
Yeah.
There are others who would say you're not going to get enough intelligence out of it or ever be able to trust it to the manner, therefore it becomes a psychological problem. From a financial standpoint, you have to spend a huge amount of money, which frankly Oracle is, to invest in the technology. But by making that investment, the returns will and absolutely occur.
Yeah, but the RPO that you were talking about, or
and that was from a psychological standpoint. And Larry talked about this yesterday. The more it learns, the better it becomes. Right.
Yeah.
So by definition, I would, and again, I'm not Sam Altman, but I would dispute the concept of a bubble.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is that every company today calls itself an AI provider. I think that there will be some marketplace consolidation, as is natural, right?
Yeah, and maybe also
Larry talked about it, right?
And maybe also, I mean, because some of the valuations of the companies are rather, maybe I'll just say it, ridiculous, and they do disturb the entire sort of financial thing. If you look at S&P 500 nowadays, the rift between the big, extremely high, and that can potentially be destabilizing for the market in general, right?
So again, financially, as I said, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
Right? It requires massive financial investment.
Yeah, basically, it's same with when you first built a cloud.
Correct.
There's also a lot of money going in without actually making a lot of money in at first, right?
Absolutely. Now, as I said, will there be some marketplace consolidation? Yes. Here's something that I would leave you with, though, which I think is absolutely critical.
That's the half of the 2.5, or not?
This is the half. It's a bit more than the half. Oracle's been in the business of data for 50 years, right? AI doesn't come about. AI would not exist without data.
No.
Just would not exist.
No.
The reason that I am incredibly confident, it's not a marketing statement, it's not a sales pitch. The reason I am so confident of Oracle's success in this environment is because everything we do is underpinned by data.
No.
And what you saw from Clay is that we started with a hardware architecture. We built bare metal. We built GPUs. We have a database layer that's vectorized. We have a middleware layer. We have an applications layer. We have an agentic capability. We have an agentic set of tools. So that's a pretty compelling value proposition.
Yeah. I mean, on paper it looks brilliant. Now it's like, but we need to see it in reality, also delivering all the spoils, right?
So I'm sensitive to your time, and I know I've taken a lot of it here, but this is what happens when you and I start talking.
Yeah.
But here, you heard it when she in our recent earnings. Right? She talked about the RPO, several $100 billion. She also said in the public domain, in our next earnings statement, all going well, that could exceed, $1 trillion. Sorry, $500 billion in value.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, and that's a lot of voting by companies with significant financial resource.
Yeah.
Not one company, it's many companies. So,
maybe next year we're gonna have this discussion again and see where we.
I look forward to it.
And then, but thanks for now. I think it was a
real
very
pleasure.
insightful.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for watching TechZine TV, the channel about enterprise technology that brings you IT insights and analyses from events all around the globe. We cover everything, everywhere. Visit techzine.eu for more written in-depth articles and analysis, or keep watching techzine.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share your favorite videos with your colleagues. We'll see you soon.